Greetings, Boogie fans! Michael here, and several times in the past, I have made videos where I give new, stronger teams to famous Pokemon trainers, like gym leaders, Elite Four members, rivals, and professors. However, I decided it was high time I give some special attention to the less famous trainers. I will be assembling fully evolved teams of 6 for regular NPC trainer classes, like Youngster, or Hiker, or Swimmer. Their Pokemon will be selected from multiple generations, since these trainer classes appear in multiple generations. And while the title does say every trainer, I'm not actually gonna be covering every trainer. I need to clarify. It would be impossible for me to cover every single trainer class. There are well over 100, and there might even be up to 200. I didn't take the time to count them all, and many of them appear in one region and then nowhere else. It would make for a terrible video, so I'm going to be trimming things down to a more reasonable level by excluding trainer classes that refer to already famous trainers like Gym Leader or Rival, refer to evil team members like Aqua Grunt, and do not appear in at least 4 regions. The last one is the big one, as it's the main way I trimmed down the trainer classes to a more manageable and reasonable amount. To me, the most important trainer classes are those that span throughout multiple regions. It wouldn't make any sense for me to give a team to a Surfer, a trainer class in Ultra Sun and Moon that only has 4 total trainers and 5 different Pokemon. I figured appearing in half of the 8 main series regions was a reasonable cutoff point, so I guess you could say this video is covering every trainer that's in at least half of Pokemon. So don't forget to subscribe to my channel, pretty please. Please? Thank you. And let's dive in, progressing in order of generation introduced, so the trainers introduced in Gen 1 first, and then within that I'll pretty much go alphabetically. First up is the Beauty, one of the few trainer classes to appear in all 8 regions. Because they've been around in so many different places, they use a wide swath of Pokemon, but actually end up using quite a lot of water-type Pokemon. That's because in Gen 1 and Let's Go, the Swimmer is a male-only trainer class, and thus those games categorize female trainers on water routes as beauties. Additionally, most of the beauties in the Hoenn region use water-type Pokemon because 7.8 out of 10 too much water, whatever. Across all of them though, they tend to use cute and or beautiful Pokemon. I think the top beauty team would be Wigglytuff, Clefable, Azumarill, Seaking, Vileplume, and Lopunny. Oddly enough, of these Pokemon, Seaking is probably the most prevalent. The amount of beauties that use Goldeen or Seaking is honestly enormous. I didn't count, but I am quite sure that they use those Pokemon more than any others by a wide margin. Haha, it is I, Grunty Boy. Hooray, he's here, and he is here for... I have an announcement. I have a job interview. Wait, seriously? A real job? A job that's not stealing? What is it? A brand ambassador for Raycon. This video is actually sponsored by them, so I thought I would come over and do a mock interview. Why would you want to do a mock interview with me? And you know what? Never mind. If it'll get you out of my hair, I'll do it. Why do you want this job? Well, because Raycon is disrupting the electronics industry by providing great sound quality at half the price of other premium audio brands. They give you 6 hours of playtime, seamless Bluetooth pairing, more bass, and a more compact design for a comfortable noise isolating fit. I see, okay. And where do you see yourself in 5 years? Wearing Raycon earbuds. They come in a range of fun colors, patterns, and fit options, and they don't have any dangling wires that get in the way while going about your day. Celebrities like Snoop Dogg, and of course Grunty Boy, are obsessed with them, and they have a 45-day return policy. All right, and what is your greatest weakness? Viewers can get 15% off their purchase by clicking the link in the description below, or by going to buyraycon.com/MNJTV. How is that a weakness? It's not, but I thought it would be important to mention. I have no weaknesses. Fair enough. You've got the job. Wow, really? Thank you. I'll get to work right away. Wait, you know this is just a mock interview, right? You weren't actually hired for any... Raycons for everyone! Ta-ta! Well, that was odd. Anyways, thanks so much to Raycon for sponsoring this video, but now let's get back to it. Next up is the Bird Keeper, appearing in the first 4 regions, Kanto, Johto, Hoenn, and Sinnoh. Obviously, they pretty much exclusively use bird Pokemon. The The Bird Keeper team would be Pidgeot, Fearow, Dodrio, Noctowl, Xatu, and Swellow. By the way, I'll say this now, if you start to notice that a lot of these teams are heavy with the Gen 1 Pokemon, that's because Gen 1 Pokemon have been in more Pokemon games than any other set of Pokemon. And therefore, these trainer classes that have been in a lot of generations are more likely to use certain Pokemon from Gen 1 a lot more than later generation Pokemon. Next up is the Black Belt, another all regions trainer class. They, as you can probably tell, use fighting type Pokemon. The team for them is Machamp, Primeape, Hariyama, Sawk, Throh, and Hitmonlee. It's Hitmonlee there because they use that a bit more often than Hitmonchan. And actually, I found quite a bit more black belts that use Sawk and or Throh than both Hitmonlee and Hitmonchan, which is a little weird. But I guess, like all the Unova black belts use Sawk and Throh. Next up is the Bug Catcher, an honestly iconic trainer class that I was really surprised to realize only appears in the first 4 regions, Kanto, Johto, Hoenn, Sinnoh. They obviously use Bug-type Pokemon, but more specifically, Bug-type Pokemon that show up in the earlier routes of the game. Their team is Butterfree, Beedrill, Venomoth, Beautifly, Dustox, and Ninjask. If you're wondering why the Sinnoh Kricketune didn't end up on the team, that's because the Bug Catchers in Sinnoh actually use the Wurmple line a lot more than Kricketune. Next up is the Ace Trainer class. Now, if you're wondering why the Ace Trainer class is coming after the Bees in the alphabetical order, that's because in Gens 1, 2, and 3, they were not called Ace Trainers, they were called Cool Trainers. Which is very funny to me. If you want to be cool, why would you call yourself a cool trainer? Oh God, they have a whip, never mind, they can call themselves whatever they want. As for their team, it is really hard to give them one. They've appeared in every region except Galar, and they don't have a theme or a type specialty like other trainer classes do. Their Pokemon theme is just fully evolved and good. It is not feasible for me to build them a team of Pokemon that they use the most often, so instead I'm gonna build them a well-balanced team of Pokemon that they use at least once that I think are cool. Because they're cool trainers. The squad for them is Arcanine, Lapras, Alakazam, Shiftry, Steelix, and Druddigon. An appropriate cool trainer team. Next up is the Fisher class, formerly known as the Fisherman class before they introduced a female member to the class in Gen 8. And also they were called Fishers in Gen 2 due to text space concerns. They, predictably, use water-type Pokemon, but more specifically, water-type Pokemon that you can fish up, and oftentimes look like, well, fish. Their team would be Gyarados, Seaking, Tentacruel, Octillery, Quillfish, and Basculin. Alternatively, their team could also just be 6 Gyaradoses, since every single game prior to Sun and Moon had at least one Fisher that used a team of 6 Magikarp. Next up are Gentlemen, a trainer class that appears in every region except Kalos. Kalos does have the Monsieur trainer class, but they only appear in the Battle Mason, and I am not counting Battle Facility trainers for this entire video. Their teams get too wacky and less relevant. Gentlemen tend to use Pokemon that are based on real-world pets, but that rule is not super strict. Their team would be Arcanine, Manectric, Noctowl, Chatot, Persian, and Rapidash. Next up are Hikers, men whose whole thing is physical activity, yet somehow didn't get physically fit until Gen 7. They've been in every region though, and they mostly use rock and ground type Pokemon with the occasional fighting type, which are almost always Machops. Their team would be Golem, Steelix, Machamp, Gigalith, Conkeldurr, and Mudsdale. Next we have Campers and Picnickers, which are grouped together here because it's 2 different names for the same trainer class. We know this because in Gen 1, they were called Junior Trainer Boy and Junior Trainer Girl, hence why they're at this point in the alphabetical order. Fun fact, in the Japanese Gen 1 version of the games, they were called Boy Scout and Girl Scout, which they changed, probably for legal reasons. Both campers and picnickers show up in the first 4 regions, Kanto, Johto, Hoenn, Sinnoh, and while they use a wide variety of Pokemon, there are certain Pokemon that they tend to use a lot that I will put on their team here. Their team would be Sandslash, Nidoking, Nidoqueen, Vileplume, Azumarill, and Rapidash. Next, we have Lasses, another trainer class that has appeared in every mainline region. They tend to use early game Pokemon. Their team would be Pidgeot, Nidoking, Nidoqueen, Wigglytuff, Bibarel, and Liepard. Next up are Psychics, who appear in the first 6 region and use, well, Psychic-type Pokemon. And also sometimes Ghost-type Pokemon, but I'm only giving them Psychic-type Pokemon. Like, come on. Their team would be Alakazam, Slowbro, Xatu, Gardevoir, Reuniclus, and Musharna. Next up are Sailors, who appear in the first 4 regions. The vast majority of the Pokemon they use are either water types or a member of the Machop line, with very few exceptions. Their team would then be Machamp, Tentacruel, Poliwrath, Pelipper, Kingdra, and Gastrodon. Next up is the Scientist, which is often aligned with the villainous team of the game, but not always. They've appeared in every region except Hoenn and Galar, and they tend to use inorganic Pokemon. Their team would be Magnezone, Muck, Weezing, Electrode, Porygon Z, and Klinklang. An honorable mention goes to Alakazam, because while it is not an inorganic Pokemon and is not used widely by scientists throughout all the regions, in Diamond and Pearl, it is the only evolutionary line they use. The only one! It's quite the testament to how limited the Diamond and Pearl Pokedex was, because the only Pokemon they thought was fit enough for a scientist is unlike the Pokemon they use in all the other regions. Yeah, Alakazam is smart, I kinda get it, but where are the Magnemites? Next up are Swimmers, another class that appears in every region. Aside from Gen 1 and Let's Go, the class is both male and female, and they, unsurprisingly, use water-type Pokemon. Their team would be Kingdra, Tentacruel, Starmie, Seaking, Wailord, and Sharpedo. And now for the last trainer class on my list that was introduced in Gen 1, Youngsters. They've appeared in every region, and they use early route Pokemon. Top percentage ones at that. Their team would be Raticate, obviously, Linoone, Arbok, Staraptor, Watchog, and Vikavolt. Youngsters tend to use bug types more often in Gen 5 and beyond due to the absence of bug catchers, hence why Vikavolt is there. You know, sometimes I feel like I'm just a grown-up youngster. I get excited about training Pokemon. I like shorts because they're comfy and easy to wear, and I wear stylish backwards baseball caps. Oh, you noticed my new one? Well, thank you. You can get one of your own very soon. It'll be at mnjtvmerch.com. Stay tuned. And now it's time to move on to the trainers introduced in Gen 2, which means that beauties, black belts, cool/ace trainers, fishers, hikers, lasses, swimmers, and youngsters are the only trainer classes to appear in every region, since I count Johto and Kanto together as Johto for Gen 2. And also, well, yeah, gym leaders, champions and stuff, but I said I wasn't talking about famous ones. The first class introduced in Gen 2 that ends up in 4 or more regions is the Guitarist, appearing in Johto, Hoenn, Sinnoh, and Unova. They mainly use electric-type Pokemon, but sometimes use Pokemon that have something to do with sound, like Whismur. Their team would be Magnezone, Electrode, Exploud, Manectric, Luxray, and Kricketune. Next up are police officers, known by different specific names depending on the region. They appear in Johto, Sinnoh, Unova, Alola, and Galar, and they tend to use mainly canine Pokemon, likely as a reference to police dogs. However, in Sinnoh, they almost exclusively use the Machop and Hoothoot lines. Machop I don't fully understand, maybe just because Machop seems to be popular with male-only trainer classes, like hikers and sailors, but for Hoothoot, I could see that being useful due to its night vision. Their team would be Arcanine, Machamp, Noctowl, Stoutland, Mienshao, and Boltund. Next up are Pokefans. Greetings! They appear in Johto, Hoenn, Sinnoh, Unova, and Kalos, and they tend to use cuter Pokemon that appear in the Fairy Egg group. a lot of them members of the Pikachu line or Pika clones. Their team would be Raichu, Azumarill, Granbull, Delcatty, Plusle, and Minun. Next up are School Kids, known as Schoolboys in Gen 2, and they appear in Johto, Hoenn, Sinnoh, and Unova. They don't really have a specific theme for all their Pokemon, so I'll build their team based on Pokemon they tend to use the most often. Those Pokemon are Vileplume, Mr. Mime, Breloom, Gardevoir, Magnezone, and Stoutland. Next up are Twins. They appear in every region except Kanto and Galar, and from Gen 3 onward, all their battles are double battles. I think it's a little weird that the double battling trainer class was introduced in Gen 2 when there wasn't double battles, but maybe they inspired the concept? Twins tend to use pairs of Pokemon that are either counterparts or somehow complement each other. So their team will be 3 pairs of counterpart or complementing Pokemon. That squad is Clefable and Wigglytuff, Plusle and Minun, and Whimsicott and Lilligant. Now on to trainers introduced in Gen 3, starting with the Battle Girl. They appear in Hoenn, Sinnoh, Unova, and Kalos, and they serve as the female equivalent of the Black Belt, thus predictably using fighting-type Pokemon. Their team would be Medicham, Hariyama, Conkeldurr, Mienshao, Scrafty, and Hawlucha. Quick side note before I move on to the next trainer, Fire Red and Leaf Green introduced a trainer class called the Crush Girl, which is only in Fire Red and Leaf Green, no other games, and seems to be virtually identical to the Battle Girl. This is a weird quirk, because why did they create this whole new trainer class when they could have just taken the Battle Girl from the Hoenn games in the same generation? Next up are Pokemon breeders, which appear in every single region except Johto. Well, they appear in the Sevi Islands in Fire Red and Leaf Green, but I count that as Kanto. They use a large variety of Pokemon, sometimes more full teams that are just a lot weaker than the surrounding trainers. However, a lot of times they use Pokemon that are members of evolutionary lines that include baby Pokemon, and since they're Pokemon breeders, I think that's a good theme to go with. Their team would be Azumarill, Roserade, Clefable, Sudowoodo, Mr. Mime, and Raichu. Next up are Pokemon Rangers, which appear in Hoenn, the Sevi Islands, Sinnoh, Unova, and Kalos. In Gen 3, they mostly use grass-type Pokemon, but they expand out to more types in later generations. So I'm gonna have their team be mostly grass-type Pokemon, but then a couple Pokemon that they use quite a few times in later generations. Their team would be Exeggutor, Vileplume, Roserade, Carnivine, Floatzel, and Luxray. And that wraps up the trainer classes introduced in Gen 3, so now on to those introduced in Gen 4, of which there are only 3. The first is the Artist, which appears in Sinnoh, Unova, Kalos, and Galar. They predictably use Pokemon that tend to have something to do with art, including the mimicking Pokemon, Bonsly and Mime Jr., since I guess mimicking is a nod to acting. Their team would be Smeargle, Kricketune, Sudowoodo, Mr. Mime, Sigilyph, and Sunflora. If you're wondering why Sunflora and Sigilyph are there, honestly, so am I. If you remove Smeargle, Kricketune, Sudowoodo, and Mr. Mime, and their pre-evolutions from the list of all the Pokemon that artists use throughout the 4 regions that they're in, you are left with only Sunflora, Sigilyph, Camerupt, and Koffing. And I just thought Sigilyph and Sunflora fit best. I do think it's odd though. I feel like there's definitely other Pokemon they could have given them that make more sense. Like some Pokemon that are a nod to dancing, like Ludicolo or Bellossom. Dancing is an art. Also, quick side note, there's also the trainer class of the Painter, which was in Fire Red and Leaf Green, and no other games. And they only use Smeargle. So that is in the umbrella of Artist. And also, what was Fire Red and Leaf Green doing with the trainers? Next up is the Socialite / Madam class. They are the female equivalents of gentlemen, appearing as older and wealthy women. They were called Socialites in Gens 4 and 5, but then their names were changed to Madam in Gen 6. They appear in Sinnoh, Unova, Alola, and Galar. They also appear in Hoenn and Kalos, but only in the Battle Mason, and like I mentioned, I'm not counting battle facility trainers. Like gentlemen, they tend to use Pokemon based on pets, or as Bulbapedia says, other refined Pokemon like Roselia, which I guess could be reworded as Pokemon that make you think of things that rich people have. Like Roselia, I guess, is a nod to a very well-maintained landscaping garden. Their team would be Purugly, Lopunny, Roserade, Liepard, Carbink, and Indeedee. Carbink is used once, but makes me think of jewelry, and a Madam and Galar uses 2 male Indeedees, which makes sense because a rich person would have a butler. The final introduced in Gen 4 trainer class are veterans. They appear in Sinnoh, Unova, Kalos, and Alola, and they appear to be older versions of Ace trainers. Like with Ace trainers, they use a massive variety of Pokemon, so it's not easy for me to pick a team. So I'll just do the same thing I did for the Ace trainers. Build them a well-balanced team of Pokemon that I think are cool, but aiming for Pokemon they use more than once. That team is Staraptor, Rhyperior, Gyarados, Leafeon, Weavile, and Magmortar. And now for the trainer class introduced in Gen 5, of which there's only one. This is actually the last trainer class of the video because all the other trainers introduced in Gen 5 or later failed to hit the 4 region requirement. It's actually impossible for any trainer class introduced in Gen 7 or 8 to hit the 4 region requirement, and Gen 6 trainers can, but it's so difficult that none of them did. They have to be introduced in X and Y, then appear in ORAS Hoenn, and then Alola and Galar. Gen 5 trainers have to hit 4 of 5 possible regions, those being Unova, Kalos, ORAS Hoenn, Alola, and Galar. And only one trainer class is able to accomplish that, the Backpacker. Backpackers actually appear in every region from their introduction onward, including ORAS Hoenn, a region they were not in before the remakes. They don't have as a refined type specialty as hikers do, despite having similar occupations. However, they tend to use a lot of normal and flying type Pokemon. So those are the types I'll focus on. Their team would be Zangoose, Watchog, Linoone, Emolga, Talonflame, and Crobat. So there we have it. Those are buff teams for every trainer class that appears in at least 4 regions. Thanks so much for watching, and an extra special thanks to my patrons over on Patreon who are helping support my channel independent of fluctuating YouTube ad rates. If you want to help support me in the same way, the link is in the description below. Also, if you want to check out some more of my fun Pokemon content, I recommend these videos here. All right, that's all I have for now. So until next time, big fans, gotta catch them all.